you are writing the story to your life. Hopefully. Hopefully you are. You have the pen to write the story to your life. But a lot of times we make the mistake of giving that pen to someone else and letting that someone else, another individual, write our story for us. That's it's not the way it's supposed to be. If you want to acknowledge that and you want to make that a reality, you need to take that pen back into your own hand and start writing your own story. And a lot of times we are writing our own story, but we write a story that isn't very good. We're not interested in it, right? And that's the indication you should be looking for. Are other people interested in my life, and am I interested in my life, right? Is the story I'm writing intriguing to me, and is the story I'm writing intriguing to other people? I had an interesting experience where this girl asked me one time, she said, all these people, all these friends, they're friends because, why have you had all these experiences with all these people, right? And I understood that her motive was different. She was only looking at the women I'd known and met in my life, right? But the truth is, I meet a lot of men and women in my life living a life that is interesting to me and ultimately interesting to other people. The number of people I've met doing things that I love and that I find meaningful has been amazing. I mean, so many great experiences, right? And one of the things I like to do is I like to take pictures of everything I do and everywhere I go. And, if I see a great opportunity, I'll take a picture, right? So a lot of times that's how the discussion comes up. I'll share something. I'll say, hey, I've been there, or hey, I did this, check this out. You might appreciate this. And people ask me to tell them about it. And and that so that was the funny thing about that story was, she said, well, look, you have all these pictures with all these girls, right? So there was a little bit of jealousy, but that wasn't the point, right? Because I also have pictures with all sorts of guys I've met and adventures and hikes I've done with them and sports, getting together a sports team, playing basketball, playing soccer at the park. I have all sorts of adventures with everybody, right? But the thing is, that's because, and again, it's a challenge, right? But I do my best to hold the pen to the pen of my life and write my life story with it. And I do my best to make my life story interesting to me. And ultimately, it's interesting to other people when you do that too. When you live authentically out of uh, interest, your own interests, right? Good interests, of course, not selfish interests, right? But out of your own interests and out of your own passions and out of your own pursuit of meaningfulness and doing things that you find meaningful, you find your life interesting, right? You are not depressed or bored or looking for other people to provide for you, right? You're not always looking around to see what everybody else is doing, what's happening on social media, what's my friend doing today because I have nothing going on, right? Instead, you're able to create this beautiful life for yourself. You're able to write your story in a way that's interesting and worth you reading, right? Worth you noticing, worth you wanting to be a part of. And of course, that does the same for others. Others, one, they follow in your example and they say, wow, I can write my own story too. And two, they say, that's interesting. What do they have in their life? Why am I drawn to this person, right? And so that's been a wonderful experience for me is meeting lots of people who've just through living out of a desire to live an interesting and meaningful life, I've met other wonderful people. And sometimes it's just been crossing paths, and sometimes it's been people saying, wow, what you're doing is cool. Can I be a part of that today? And that shows up in funny ways. It's like it shows up in just the most random ways. It can be as something as little as, hey, you're playing basketball. I'd like to play basketball with you. To use the example earlier, right? So that the big point is there's a pen and a story to be written of your life, and that pen should be in your hand. It belongs in your hand. Are you holding it? Are you writing your own story? That's your choice, right? You get to choose if you want to write your own story and how to write it, right? The other thing is, the other big message is the story you're writing interesting? I watched this video once a while back by Rich Cooper, and he made an excellent point. He was talking about building yourself up as a person as a whole, right? But he said compare your life to a spoked wheel. You want to build everything evenly. You want to work on your physical appearance, your status, your financial well-being, um, your hobbies, everything, right? You want to build these all out equally, right? But one of the things he talked about was actually having that interesting life and letting that be one of the spokes of the wheel that you made sure wasn't shorter than the others, because then the wheel is bumpy, right? It's not rolling because it's not round, right? So he talked about the same thing, and in the last week, this message has showed up to me in little ways so many times that I said this is something that needs to be shared. Um, but yeah, are you creating for yourself an interesting life? Are you doing things you love doing, right? And what does that look like? I saw this comment on Facebook, and this guy said, "Hey, how do I meet women?" And I thought, this is a great place to share some insight. And I said, if you really want to meet women, stay off the internet. Go do things you love doing. And someone answered my message, my comment, and said, what does that look like? What do you do? And I said, great. This is the question I want to answer, right? Because they said, ultimately they wanted to know how I'd met women, right? And again, this goes back to the fact that doing things I find interesting, I've met men and women, right? And some of them were just for brief moments, just to share a great story. And some of them turned into dates, and some of them turned into relationships, right? But the reality is, when you create a life of interest, people notice. People notice, and they want to be a part of that. And that's great, because then you're able to get other wonderful messages across to people, and share a joyful experience with people. So I answered that comment going back to the Facebook story, right? I said, I do things I like doing. I go to the museums. I go hiking. I walk dogs, as a side hustle for money. Um, what else do I do? I go to church. I love going to church. I drive. I go for drives. I go for walks. Every now and then I'll go to a new restaurant. I do all sorts of stuff. And a lot of times it's by myself, because I don't, it's a self-interest. It's something I enjoy doing. I don't need other people to be there to join me, because I like doing it. And that's how it's something you're genuinely interested in, is if you can do it by yourself, then you enjoy doing it. Um, and I met lots of people this way. I've met people in restaurants. Um, and of course I was answering his question of how do you meet women doing things you love doing. I said, I've met women hiking. I've some folks I walk dogs for said, did you meet your girlfriend walking our dog? And I said, you really would think, but no. Um, I've met women at church. I've met women um, at museums, and while I'm out traveling and adventuring, right? And the same goes for men. I've met people, all sorts of people, all ages. I've met wonderful people who inspired me while I was at the gym. There was this one time I met a gentleman, and I came up to him and I said, "How old are you?" Right? Typically a very rude question, right? But I said, "How old are you?" You're working out at the gym and you're having a great time. You've got a smile on your face. And you've got this great energy. He says, you know, this year I'll be 67." I said, "Wow." I said, "At 67, that's where I want to be. Still working out at the gym, and not slowly or miserably, right? But with energy and with passion." And so that's why I said hello to him, right? But I meet people all over the place, and that's because I do what I find interesting. And that doesn't mean I don't partake in other people's interests, because I do, right? But when I'm going through my daily life, I'm doing my best to hold the pen that writes my story and write my story myself. And that can be a reality for you, right? So live a life of interest, and make sure you're holding the pen that's writing the story of your life. Peace.